It's just you and me. What's up? It's old Hankering Fernail here. It's Sunday morning, and yeah, it's a little bit of a surprise. Why not? Let me stop blasting you with this nuclear fire level exposure here. It's pretty bright. There we go. It's a little better. How's that? Yeah, sure. I don't know. See some laundry in the background. Everything's going to be great. Anyway, hi, guys. It's your old buddy Hankering Fernail here. Welcome back to Runehammer. It's a little surprise stream here just because, you know, sometimes the mood just hits you. I'm going to be doing some work in the MORUT right now. I'm going to be doing some D&D doodling. It's a little bit of a warm-up and just something that I needed to get done because I'm going out to Too Many Games Expo here in a few hours. I'm going to drive on out, check out the con, and appear in a fun little panel with Bob Worldbuilder. So that's going to be cool. But before that, I wanted to get a couple of these pages done, try out these new brown Sharpies, and have a good time. So I'm going to swing the camera on over, and you know how we do it. I'm not going to go all silent on you this time, though. We'll do a little bit of chit-chatting. Here we go. Woo. All right, there we are. All right, let's get this out of here. A scholar's work is never done. Let's see. So I got my kit pretty well contained now in this nice wizard's satchel. So here's my kit. That's about all. Let me get that out of there. Kriba, yes, I am going to be doing another set of pages live somewhere at the con. Now, I don't really know what this con is all about or what it's going to be like. You know, every con is different. So we shall see, basically. But yeah, I am from now on. When you see me out at cons and stuff like that, you'll see me with the MORUT. I'm gonna just sort of live with this thing a little bit. All right, so let's get some progress here. Let's get some work done. Let me see if I can. There we go. Give you a goodly view of the cat tree. And basically, what I'm going to be drawing on today is called Mapless Dungeons, or, you know, mapping the Mapless is also kind of the goofy name that I give it. And this is something you're going to find a lot of in Crown and Skull. Crown and Skull is my forthcoming book. It's probably my biggest project to date. It's definitely the most complex and the most thoroughly sort of vetted, proofread, and play tested. It's really, I mean, hard to do as much play testing as I did with ICRPG because that was like years of play testing. But yeah, anyway, in Crown and Skull, the dungeons, especially there's sort of these mega dungeons, they're very large. They come in a mapless form. And I'm a huge lover, as everybody knows, of dungeon maps, but I've found more and more over the years that in play at the table in the sort of the real world sort of GMing situation, that there's a lot more to discover when I'm not just trying to directly translate a map from something I'm looking at that players can't see to the table, but if we're discovering it together. So many videos that I've done here on YouTube have talked about, you know, using dice to map out dungeons and discover what's around the next corner. And this is just the system that is used inside of Crown and Skull. And it's quite simple, but it does take a minute to get your head around how it isn't just sort of rolling randomly and feels like just kind of this kind of flim flam method. Okay. Okay. So we're going to kind of use these pages to get this sort of, this deep feel on mapping the Mapless. Now, a lot of you are probably noticing some of these torn pages here. And yeah, I am cannibalizing pages from later in the book to double surface the pages as I go so that I can use Sharpies freely and I get a completely clean surface on the next page. I also just like how this kind of feels in the spine. So I'll skip 10 pages, pull a page out, use it to double a page and go on. So the book will remain the same number of pages, the same weight, the same heft, but I get these really nice, I mean, and again, I keep saying this stuff's like a beach towel. Like it's got such a weight to it. It's kind of crazy. So anyways, thanks everybody for tuning in. let's get into mapping the mapless, okay? So basically, this is a 2D4 system. So even though I use prism-shaped D4s, I'll be sort of always depicting a D4 as a triangle because I think it's the most familiar to people. So if, for example, you go back to here, the stones, the 7 stones of the MORUT. So this basically is just a short text that gives nicknames to the stones. So the clock stone is the D4. And so I'm going to be depicting the clock stone here quite a bit. Let's see. So a system using dice to create surprising spaces and events. That's my first kind of a, oh, you can't see too good, can you? There you go. That's my first kind of, preamble, if you will, subtitle. And I guess I just list materials here. Now, some of you may think that it's sort of nonsense, the sort of script that I write, but really it is quite readable. Yeah, another way, I love what you're saying there, Kriba. Yeah, it's like these particular pages from the MORUT haven't been discovered yet. So the materials required to use mapping the mapless system, just 2 clock stones and pen and paper. So let's get into how this works. So there are 2 pieces that we're going to talk about, and one is location and one is event. Now, event is somewhat easy to understand. So we're going to go down here for event. Okay, here's my first clock stone, as I've kind of nicknamed it. Another thing that I've been doing is before I get started, see how my Sharpie is going to hang out in there. Now, to a lot of you, this is going to feel intense. I'm going to go way back into the book and just write off the binding. So this book is bound with these sort of rustic kind of string leather things. There you go. I've extracted a page. I'm going to go all the way back here, and I'm just going to use this for now as a bleed page, just in case my pen ever really hesitates or anything like that. Another thing that I'll do is use my Italian journal here, and I'll put it under here just to keep everything perfectly level and give me like a strong hand rest. Like this gives me a really solid place to rest my hand. Okay, so down here is the event portion, and this is the really simple portion of the system. And this is probably what a lot of you are very familiar with, especially if you're reading something like Shadow Dark. And something that we've used in role playing, since the beginning, honestly, is like using dice to determine, what you find, right? And so I think we're going to start with 4 bullets, right? These would be the 4 possible rolls of the clock stone here. And this particular one is event. Okay, and it's going to be pretty simple. Now I'm going to do the same thing up here. So here's our other clock stone, as we like to call it in MORUT language, also known as a D4. And as this project continues over the coming months and potentially years, I think you'll see more and more how like nicknames for dice can actually be quite fun. Okay, so anyway, here we have Clockstone 1, Clockstone 2, location, and event. Now, down here, like I said, pretty simple. So let's focus on this first. And I know that on your view, this is sort of only so much of you. Here, maybe we can give you more. There we go. There we go. It's kind of a little more in my face this way, but maybe give you a little better Now you can really focus on this area, okay? So how does this work? Well, first of all, 4 is an exit. So how does that work? Okay, wait, what? What did you just say? Okay, so let's take a look at it, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it kind of like this. Okay, so we're gonna use Romans because they're cool. So the idea in a mapless dungeon, the goal that you're always going to have is to have discovery, right? To find things, and eventually then to check out different corridors, different tunnels, or maybe they're rocky canyons or tangled forests. And eventually, what you really do, no matter how detailed or not detailed your map is, what you really do is progress. Now, exactly how squiggly a given path is, or whether you find this or you find that, you want to progress. So, what we're going to do is we're going to chart the dice system on this page. Then we're going to go to this left page and we're going to turn it into a map. In an ultimate twist of irony, we're actually going to make a map of the mapless system. Okay. So, basically, this is going to be the worst. Okay. So, I think for each one, we're going to go back to our script. Here, let's do it to the right for fun. Everybody likes to have fun, right? Sure. I got to tell you, there's a lot of sublime pleasure too in making your own like notebook paper lines. I know it adds, quite a bit of time to any particular journal project you might be doing, but man, does it feel cool. It's just comforting in some weird way. Okay, so this is a dire or dangerous place. Then 2 and 3 are both kind of like chance at progress or peril. And we're just kind of leaving it open that way. And then same thing here. Okay. So up here, this one should be dreaded by all. And this will become clear here in a moment. Okay. Now, finally, 4 is the exit. And this is where you'll really start to understand like how I kind of use this to create progress. So my note on roll 4 is exit, away to the next 4-part area. Okay, so each one of these is an area, but this is a sort of a, actually, no, let's take that back. Each one of these is a location. This is an area. So we need to make a note of that. So let's do it here. Right? So when you get these location 4 roll, you don't exit to here or whatever. You exit to another one of these. Okay? So the GM is going to have maybe 3 of these as an average kind of playable space. And if a 4 can be rolled, we're going to go to an exit. But that doesn't mean you just see a big door and walk through it. It means that this area must be crossed. And so what we're going to do is add some sort of conceptual notation on that. Okay, so let's give each one a circle. And this circle represents the location rolled. Okay, so this keeps you from getting confused and thinking that a location is a point in space. It's not a point in space, it's a space. So we're going to have to traverse each one of these. Okay, so we're going to start here. We're always going to start in the top left corner when we enter one of these locations. All right, so everybody, I hope, is with me right now. By the way, thank you everybody for tuning in on Saturday morning here. Good to have you around. And as I mentioned, like, this is just going to go on. The MORUT and D&D Doodlin is going to go on for a long time. You'll be seeing me doing a lot of this. And it's because I'm trying to move away from, you know, an advice type mindset. And I'm really trying to move into a generative mindset. So like, this is where I'm going to be. This is my zone for a little while. Hey, thanks, AJ. Really appreciate the beer money. Okay. So here, we're going to use X's as threats. And look, we're going to add an exit to each one. Now here, the exit is absolute. Next area, right? But what's crazy is these three all go to location roll. Oh man, these brown Sharpies are love. You know, especially because the scale of this book and what I'm trying to kind of, you know, portray to you guys in a camera shot, like pen is way too small. So I just told myself, screw it. We're just going to use a bunch of Sharpies and just like go big. Okay. So this is the key fact right here. Okay. But you don't just get your guaranteed exit just because you rolled a 4. You have to cross this, right? So what we're going to do, remember, everything in the MORUT is kind of this glyphic language. And what are triangles in the MORUT? Clockstones. Through this clockstone, you must travel. Through this clockstone, you must travel. Through this clockstone. I hope everybody sees how this is starting to work. Like, to me, this kind of stuff lights my brain up. I'm a visual thinker. I do mind mapping quite often. So this dotted line represents gameplay, represents struggle. Okay, so here we have, this circle is the rolled location. And this triangle is the rolled event. Okay, so now you start to see when I roll a 1 and then I come down here and I roll a 1. Let's number these. Right, I'm going to be in this location, whatever it may be, the grotto, right? And I'm going to have this encounter, which is, you know, frogmen. Okay. Sorry, I just had there's a weird psychic wave that just moved through the room. That was very strange. Okay, so you can see how this creates something we're relatively familiar with in role playing, which is like a combined sort of 2 dice sort of encounter. It describes where you are and what happens. Okay, you're in the grotto and frogmen jump out. That was generated by your dice rolls. What's a little bit interesting here is, okay, we deal with the frogmen and we come over here, and when I leave this room, when I make it across this location, I'm going to roll again on location. Now, you're probably, if you're like me, the first thing you'll imagine is, what if I roll another 1? Well, then you continue to be in the grottos. You continue to be in the grottos. So let's make an area down here which is reserved for scenarios. Okay, we're going to call out what some people would consider edge cases. Scenarios. Okay. And we're going to, just for fun, we'll switch to black. Okay. So we're going to call this, I don't know if you can see anymore. Yeah, I hope so. There you go. We're going to call this odd scenarios. And if you're like me, that first odd scenario you're going to see is repeat location. Then we've got early exit. That would be weird. Like right away, you roll exit. Then we have repeat event. And we have lost, which I'll explain in a moment. Okay, so these are our odd scenarios, as I like to call them. We're going to go to black uniball here just to get a little more space. Here we go. Okay, House DM, my man, asking the very question we're answering right now. How to ensure your players don't just keep looping back to the first room. Like, I've been rolling ones for hours, right? Okay, so that is repeat location. So this is not circling, but continuing within a thematic location. Searching for progress. You can tell I'm using my super clear font now to make sure that everything is understood here. Sorry about the psychic wave there earlier. I kind of vapor locked for a second. Like there's some kind of, you ever get that thing where like the air pressure changes and like your hearing like goes from to like the entire frequency of the world like slightly changes? I got one of those. Okay, so to answer House DM's question, we keep rolling ones. Okay, so we're in the grottos. What this means, it doesn't mean I'm just doing this. I'm just like, wow, we're just walking in circles in the same gymnasium. No, it doesn't mean that at all. You still cross each space. What it means is that the grottos are large, that you're still walking through the grottos. You're searching for other parts of this dungeon, but it's just grottos and grottos. The caverns go on and on and on. Now, there is a point, but I don't think this is very realistic, a point where you're rolling, a zillion ones on a D4. I honestly don't think that's a realistic edge case to think about, but it can happen. But you're not in a loop. You're not in a loop at all. So imagine that you're exploring a dragon's cave, okay? The entrance tunnels to the dragon's cave could either be very short, like you just go through a quick descent and then there's this huge cavern, or you could find yourself weaving your way through endless twisting and turning tunnels, which are just caverns leading down to the dragon's lair, okay? Those two scenarios can be depicted two ways. One could be drawing a map, choosing which version of the dragon's lair that is. The other version is to do it this way. So I hope that you're with me in seeing how rolling the same location is not going in a loop. It's not Groundhog Day. It is a different layout of the area in your mind. And what's great about it is that you're not translating a drawn map to your players. You are all discovering it together in real time. And that's where this really gets cool. Now, let's say, for the sake of fun, we have repeat event. This is not a time loop. It's more of what was previously encountered. I.e., enemies or perils. Okay, so let's keep playing this weird game of completely embracing the weird scenario where I keep rolling double ones on my D4s. I for some weird reason, I can't escape it. Okay, so here's my triangular D4. I keep getting a one up here, and then we're like roll down on our event, and I get another one, and it just happens again and again. As you can see just by my test rolls, it actually doesn't really happen that much. It would be extremely rare, but we're going to pretend that it's not rare. I got another one, and I got another one. It's not that the same thing happens again. That's the way to not imagine it. It's that more happens. Okay, so remember in our scenario, we had a grotto. We're journeying through this kind of wet cavern where tidal action or water erosion has dug out all these little hidey holes and twists and turns in the rocks. And some frogmen jump out and we fight them. And then we're like, we move past, right? So we get to here. When we get to here, we roll again and we get the same roll. We don't go back in time. We don't do a time loop. We turn a corner and there are more grottos. We roll the event and we get the same roll again. And it's like another squadron of frogmen is waiting in the shadows. So it's kind of crazy because that could be designed in a map. I could draw a map as we're going to do over here. And I could say, here's Frogman Encounter 1. And then you go down this little squiggly path and here's Frogman Encounter 2. But what I'm doing is pre-planning what the dice could have done dynamically. Yeah, and House, you're right on point. So it's not that you magically go to the same group of orcs and they've all resurrected and you've gone back in time and you're looping. That's not it at all. You're in a cave of large enough proportion that there are more than one group of, in your case, orcs to fight off intruders. And that's what the dice have told you rather than my planning. Okay, so that's though. Okay, so now let's think about these other two sort of odd scenarios. Another one is early exit. So we come to the dragon's lair and I get, well, we're trying to find our way into the dragon's lair. Let's say it that way. And I get a 4 right away. So again, actually, no, let's not nerf it. This is the dragon's lair. So a 4 here would be like, we could actually just cut right to it. We could say that is the lake, right? The big lake in the bottom of the cavern where the dragon is. This next area in my plan as the game master is the surface. It's the way out. It's the mountains behind the dragon's lair, right? But just because I rolled a 4 doesn't mean I'm already here. I have to cross this. I have to cross this encounter. Now I could say, wow, let's roll it. And for fun, let's be dicks about it. And I get another stinking 1. Frogmen. Where's the damn dragon? Now, as a GM who truly embraces dice at this moment, you have to let your mind relax and say, you encounter a group of frogmen. These are the inner sanctum, though. So I'm going to make one of them like a dragon priest. So he has some cool gear. And we've got a much more intense fight. Also, we have a lake where frogs are going to have an advantage. Maybe there's some stalactites hanging and there's some lick of flames on the water. But I have to embrace what the dice have told me. The dragon is not here. But we're going to go down here for encounter 4. Actually, we're going to do encounter 1 being, we're going to nickname these the dragon. Then we're going to go foes, and a discovery. Meaning players generally root for higher rolls on their D4s. Okay, so I roll a 2. So we've kind of changed our thing here. Now 2 is this pesky one we keep getting. That's our frogmen, right? So we roll a 4 for location, then we roll a 2. What? A 2? But the dragon is supposed to be here in the lake. But as the GM, what you do is you just embrace this truth. And this is what can be so cool, is that you've gone into the cavern, you've confronted these various like amphibians who seem to be worshiping this dragon, and the dragon is not currently there. And rather than go, oh man, what a bummer, I had this dragon ready on page 292 or whatever, and I was going to bring the pain, but instead, as the GM, you get to be surprised for once, instead of being like, well, guys, yeah, I basically wanted to throw a dragon at you tonight, so here it is. Instead, the world almost, it feels like it's alive. And now the story of your game has shifted a little bit, like, well, where is it? It must be out feeding or marauding or something. What's going on? And so you almost want to interrogate the frogmen, if that's even possible, or look for clues where it may be, and the journey continues. And like, that moment of my dragon isn't in my dragon lair, to me, is the crucible of great GMing, because you're not just this keeper of answers and you're rubbing your hands together going, hey, I threw a dragon at you. Instead, you're finding all this stuff together. Okay, so let's do these ones. So an early exit is just a surprising version of the area, not the location, the area. Ding dong, dragon's not home, right? It's a surprising version. Also, in a lot of cases, what players want. They don't want to be in tunnels forever, working their way down. They want to find that dragon priest frog, take his equipment, interrogate or kill him, and move on with life. Right? They kind of want to roll that 4 early. They want this kind of semi-strange scenario. And you, as the flexible GM, are not going to stop it from happening. You're going to be okay with that. Rather than being like, oh man, I wanted you guys in this dungeon to be like the next 300 years stuck in here. No, you're going to embrace what happens because you don't know. The world is surprising to you. And it makes your job and life as GM fun. All right. Let's talk about Lost. Lost is when we just, let's say the only way we're going to find the relic that we're seeking or whatever is to get location 4. And we don't get repeat locations, but we're wandering through a dungeon. Now, if you have a dungeon map, we've all seen players do this. They turn left when they should have turned right. They double back and then they go down into the fucking atrium rather into the armory, right? Or they get hung up on some strange distraction with this fissure or this broken bridge. And the whole time as GM, you're just dying, chewing on your own thumbs because they won't just go down the like where the glowing arrows are pointing them to go down to the reliquary. They just won't take no matter how plain the hints are. And so rather than the map driving that particular situation or player behavior not getting the freaking memo on where to go, the dice are just doing this. And this is when you're lost. And here, there is really only one true solution, which is that the players bail or the GM bails. And you'll have to just leave that to the moment to know. So we're going to just make a note for that. We're going to say player retreat or GM intervention. Okay, so if players become lost, we're going to say to resolve endless wandering. Now, before anybody skewers me on how vague or non-systematized the term GM intervention is, come on now. Be honest with me. We've all freaking done it. Every single GM out there who's got a map in front of them running a dungeon and players just will not find the cool thing. At some point, you reach your limit. You switch the map in your mind. You move the door that you need them to go through in front of them without them knowing, by the way. And now they finally have reached some kind of something because the wandering has reached a point. It's actually a detriment to the fun of the entire table. We've all done it. Everybody's done it. And even you're playing like the most established map out there. Everyone has done it. I just simply do not believe you if you say you've never done it. You're in Red Brand Manor and the group cannot find the way down into the fissure below the hideout. They just will not find it. You put the stairs in front of them and shove them down the stairs at some point. It just happens because it's just going in circles. Going in circles is cool for a minute, you know, Em Wheel, right? Like Frodo and Sam went in circles for a minute and it was cool. It made it a struggle. It depleted their resources. It was difficult for them. They had like psychological challenges. But then there was a moment when Gollum appeared and he said, oh, this way. So the dice may give you a version of your dungeon that is like Em Wheel. A labyrinth of razor-sharp rocks. But at some point, either the players or the GM will know this is kind of nuts. Like we've been wandering around in this cathedral, finding chapel after chapel. Like where is the door to the inner sanctum? And that's totally okay. The same thing happens when you're using maps as when you're using this system. So you just kind of embrace it. All right, so let's switch to red here. And we're going to make a quick note on what these nicknames mean for events and the sort of shorthand system that I use. One, this is worst possible threat. So let's imagine a weird case. We're in location 1. We're in the entry grottos. And then for the event, I get the dragon. Actually, that's kind of cool. Like maybe it's feeding its young in the upper caves. And you kind of surprise it. It's not in its lair. It's like squeezed into these smaller tunnels where it keeps its young. And now we have a surprising and generative kind of emergent version of this dungeon that isn't just like, well, of course it's in its lair. It's a dragon, right? No, the world is living on its own and it's told you where the dragon is rather than you just knowing ahead of time. Worst possible threat, deadly peril, like something like a collapse or, like a breaking floor or a rock fall or like an acid cloud, right? And as you're making content using this mapless system, you can just use this shorthand however you need it. Deadly peril, awful. So when players are rolling that clock stone on event, they do not want the 1 to come up, and they're very clear about that. And that's what makes this roll exciting for them. Like no ones, no ones, no ones. Ones are whammies. All right, a 3. Okay, so 2 and 3 are de-escalating levels of threat. And so here we have, we'll call it an elite threat. A large foe group. Or a leader type foe. Okay, then down here we have minions, mooks, right? Flat-footed foes. Well, say that 3 times fast. And then here, a 4, remember, players are rolling this stuff. Okay, guys, give me an event now that you're in the next series of grottos. They're going 4, 4, 4. Come on, 4. Come on, give me a 4. Hey, I got it. A discovery is a non-threat. Clue. Sort of NPC, I guess. Important find or boon. So I come into the grottos, I roll 4 on my event. We actually find the chest that documents the sort of the biology or the ecology of this dragon and like how it behaves, where it hunts, when it has its young, stuff like that. Ooh, wow, that's cool. Hey, also, what's this ring here? I don't know, whatever. We rolled it on the loot tables. Okay, cool. Well, close that chest. Let's move on. When they roll it again, oh, look, we got more grottos because we're still playing that little weird scenario. And then we roll it again, and I go, ooh, I got a 3. There's a bunch of minion-level frogmen here acting confused, and 2 of them are asleep. So you see, it's just the pathway is unfolding in front of me. And I know that the skeptic inside many of you right now is thinking, well, what if I just keep rolling 4 on the event? That is a mathematic possibility, but in reality, at your table, there we go. 4, 4, 1, 2, 2, 4, 3, 2. See what just happened? Now, that would be a long session of play, what I just did. There were a couple of like boons in there, and there are about 3 groups of enemies. Think back to every session you've ever played. It's a mixture of this. And did you notice too, in what was that, 5 rolls that I just did? I never got a 1. I never got the dragon. So that would be a more traditional version of what you would expect from a dungeon, right? And this is mapping the mapless. Like I'm feeling like my thesis is somewhat demonstrated here. So let me do a note down below. This system performs what a pre-designed map performs. but with the added aspect of, in caps, surprising both GM and player alike. This gives the GM the chance to be surprised that at the end of session 3, the dragon still had not been slain. Now, just for fun, I think I'll go red here. I could use a little more red. I'm just going to embellish a little bit so that I feel happy about my page. It is the MORUT after all. The MORUT is a relatively ornate tome, as they say. Ornate is a really abused word in D&D, kind of like maw or skitter. Ornate is kind of like, the stuff on a violin, but for some reason, that word just seems to come up so much. You have filigree on your pistol. That's an ornate pistol. And let's give a little bit of weight to our lettering here. So my rule with that. Just draw things twice, and wherever your lines diverge, fill in the gap, and it'll look like you're doing intentional line weight. One of the oldest and most effective drawing tricks in the book. Just draw it twice and fill in where the lines digress, and you get really cool variation on line weight. You just pretend like you meant to do it. Okay, and there we have a pretty good sheet of notes. Right, like the fun of the MORUT isn't just to do functional GM notes. It's also just to make fun and pleasing pages. All right, so now let's be weird and kind of silly and do exactly what all of this thinking is made to replace, which is the mapping itself. And we're going to stick with our example that we've been playing with so far for fun, because we all like fun. Okay, so we're going to actually go back to the traditional mindset. Instead of saying, oh yeah, mapping the Mapless is so cool, Runehammer all the way, oh my God, I'm going to need my Runehammer t-shirt now because fucking A. No. Hankerin, you're a lunatic. This mapping the Mapless shit is complete BS. I love having cool maps with, cross-hatching on them, and like I translate a map right to my players, and that's how I've done it for years, and it's cool. Okay, fine. Let's embrace it. And then we can, with our eyes open, compare the two. Okay, let's do that. So I have a double thickness page here. So we're going to do this Lair of the Frog Dragon. Okay, again, so how do I do line weight? You draw the same thing twice and fill in where the lines diverge from each other. All right. So there's our start. Now I need to give myself a little more surface under here to make myself happy. Hello, Theron. Yes, I did get the 1.1 nib. Here it is right here. I have not gotten into it yet. I'll get there in time. Okay. Let's give myself a little more love and space here. All right, cool. Feeling solid. So now let's take everything we just learned about the lair of the frog dragon over here, and we're going to translate it into a traditional map. Okay, I'm going to move you a little bit. Hold on to your back, fasten your seatbelts here, folks. There we go. Okay, cool. That way I can kind of get under here. I don't know if you can. Okay, good. I can get my head under there without you just looking at my giant head. All right, so we had the grottos. We didn't fully explain what really was going on here. So first we've got this. Okay, this is our little entrance. Then we go to a cutaway, and then we have the grottos. Okay, so we talked about getting 1 to 3 rolls that we expected to be grottos. And so we're going to do what traditional maps do. There's even a spot where the grottos split a little bit here. Okay, so that would be there. Then we've got these two, right? So let's do the things that we mentioned earlier. So we've got the place where the young are fed. We have the temple where this thing is worshipped, which is a architectural space. And then we have, of course, and we're going to switch back to a sort of side view here, the lair itself. And remember, the lair also had an exit. So we're going to put the exit right here. Okay, so you can see how I'm a goofball because I kind of switched back to like a side view from a top view. I'll give some explanation as I go, but right now I'm just doing what I do. We've all done this for years, right? I mean, this is just going on instinct. These are just classic staircase shorthand, right? Okay, so how are we going to do this? Let's just do some labeling. First, though, I think I need the poison lake is right here. Here, I'll fill it in. It's right there. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to need like some labeling. I also just need to do the line weight. It makes me crazy. So remember what I said with line weight. You just draw the same thing twice. Let your hand be loose and fill in where the lines diverge from one another. Also, it's noon, so I've got a little while longer before I need to get moving. Gonna head out to the con. Gonna drink a ton of water because I'm sure in our panel tonight we're gonna be talking a ton. So you see how I'm just being sloppy with my hand and letting the line diverge? I'm not trying to trace the other line. Let your hand just relax and let whatever happens gonna happen. Kind of try to follow it, let it diverge. And then where they don't meet, and I know I'm repetitive, but just get this in your head. It's very useful. So there you go. I just fill in those divergences and it creates all this interesting line weight and makes your work look finished. For those who sat through the very first MORUT session, I hope you're feeling what I'm feeling of what a kindness this is to be using Sharpies. It's so much faster. I was really getting frustrated in that first one with how little ink I was getting on the paper for the time invested, especially with folks watching. All right, so there's my line weight. Oh, not quite. Got a few rooms to finish. See how that makes it, gives the line weight and character, and it almost like implies some perspective here and there. All just because you drew it twice and filled in the divergence. There we go. Now let's finish. Same process here, just drawing it twice. And down here to finish up. Yeah, there's really no single drawing tip I can give that is more powerful than draw twice and fill in the discretion. It's so effective. Okay. Looking good, right? Feels cool. All right, so now I'm going to need some notation so we can talk about all this stuff and what it is. And I'm going to do lines just because they're so fun for me. I just get a kick out of them. I don't even sweat if they're truly parallel. I just don't worry about stuff. I'm here to have fun. It's a hobby, not a jobby. Well, in my case, it's both. But I'm weird that way. We have this one. And yeah, a huge block of wood really would be good as an underpiece. It'll be a lot easier when I'm in the middle of the book, but at the beginning, yeah, it's a little challenging. But I'm going to power through it. Thor is with me. All right, great. So now let's fill these in. Okay, first we have the entrance. We'll call it cave mouth. And we'll also, I put an E on mouth. That's kind of fun. And we'll also call it like the Maiden's Lament. So when they send sacrificial maidens up here, sorry, ladies, they see that opening cave and like that's when they start screaming and crying. Okay, then here we have the grottos. I know that's kind of dark, but hey, it's a dragon's lair. Then we have the draconic temple. Then we have the feeding grounds. And finally, we have the, what'd you call it? The poison lake. We also have an exit here. We're going to call this a shaft to the mountains. Okay, so again, the idea here is to portray how we would traditionally do all this stuff, right? Not to just live in this system, but a traditional game master might be more comfortable here, and we're here to make a bit of a comparison, right? Now, one thing about the feeding grounds, there's blood everywhere. It's an absolute nightmare. So I'm just going to put some little blurbity blips and my little shorthand for skeletons, which is these. So, for example, one of my discoveries that I list for this place could be something with bodies. Who are the corpses and what is the stuff around them and what do they reveal and what kind of clues could they offer that could make for a discovery? So then here in the grottos, we have sort of like two routes around this big central area, but we're going to need to differentiate that a little bit. One thing I want is some dirt. Here we go, dirt. I need some shading on the draconic temple details. I think what's going on here is you have some kind of altar with like a dragon statue here. Altar, dragon statue. Okay, for the grottos, we have frogmen, as we discovered. Frogmen hideout. Now, whether they're there or not could be up to here, or it could be up to you in a more traditional way. Feeding grounds, we have dragon young. We have eggs. And we have remains. It's a gentle way to say bloody, gory, scary stuff. And in the poison lake, we have where it sleeps. Dun, dun, dun. And then also toxic water. So like the water that the dragon like sleeps in and uses to regenerate is of course poisonous to mortals, all that good stuff. Now for my last little thing I wanted to do here is I'm going to take my black uniball, and I need to make sure that you understand that this is not traversable space right here. I need to make a differentiation. Envy or fear. I would like to learn to draw, but I don't have the skills. Well, not having the skill is a perfect place to begin to learn. So cross-hatching is often used in map making to show a place that cannot be traversed. So let's do that. See that? So this either makes it look like a boulder or something that's interrupting the walkable space. And it's just something that kind of tickles traditional D&D map makers for reasons that remain a complete mystery. And we can also do that kind of throughout, just to remind the viewer where the edges of things are. I think my pen might be dying on me a little bit here. That's disappointing. I just need a few here and there. So it just kind of, puts it into the page in a little bit. And yeah, maybe people like it because it reminds you of the old days. That's a pretty good point. The Lair of the Frog Dragon. I kind of emphasize that a little bit. And now we're going to commit heresy on this drawing. We're going to take our red uniball and we're going to do some circles. And I'm just going to do them by hand. And what we're going to do is kind of imply these locations with this being the area. So this just reminds us that we are comparing concepts here, not just making stuff. We are comparing 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Now we can get a look at the whole mess. Here we go. And yeah, in environmental design, crosshatch is definitely like a shorthand for drawing, cut stone. All right. And now we're getting a look at a spread of notes. Hello, Vorpalbite. Which god do you mean? All right. Now, what is sort of left undone here? Well, I need some weight over here. Now we're just into the realm of just design. I have told all you guys I came to tell you. Now I just need to be satisfied visually. And this is where a lot of people say, wow, how come my GM's journal doesn't look like yours? You know, yours looks so put together. And it's generally because of going back. Once you're done with your notes, go back and love them a little bit. Don't just do the functional part and walk away. Well, unless you want. I mean, that's your prerogative, obviously. But going back and adding some weight and balance to your notes makes them a real joy to look at later. Okay, so there now, see how the weight sort of matches? But now I feel a lack of weight down here somewhere. It's down here somewhere, looking at the camera shot. So I'm going to kind of come down the middle, and I'm just going to do an ink blot. Like that. Why is that there? It just acts as, oh, look, we have some sun coming out. That's amazing. Let me adjust the exposure for you. There you go. And now I feel a lack of weight up here. So let's add some rocks. And we don't need a ton, just, you know, a few things just like this. And there's that trick again and again and again. Okay, so there's this creepy road that goes up to the entrance. Actually, there's also, like, along this road, there's some of these creepy, like, things like this, and they have like manacles hanging from them for prisoners or sacrifices to the dragon god. It's not a cross per se, but it's kind of, you know, like a thing that a person would go on. Okay, so if you're wondering like what I'm doing when I kind of stop, I actually look at the camera shot rather than the page, and it gives me like a fresh view. Yeah, we can add some trees. And I know you're also referencing the Tree of Woe from Conan. And I feel like I have done what I set out to do. Oh, one last thing. Let's do some gold real quick. Then it's time to feed the dog, pack up, and go to the con. Little gold ink is always fun. Silver in the middle. Really give these the weight they need in the layout. And there, now I feel done. Okay, so now let's pack up the kit. All these fun items. There you go there. You guys, that is it for me for this little live stream. The Morut continues. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. The Harley starting up out in the street is a sign. This stream is over. Catch you next time. And if you're going up to Too Many Games con up up in Oaks, PA. I'll see you around 5 tonight. Otherwise, I'll catch y'all on that old internet. All right. Have a great weekend, y'all. Later.